knowing when to say no means so much more about the yeses you do say.
But it's going to be different for everybody.
This is Business Technicalities. I'm Jason Slago with CNWR, joined by
Brett Chittum with Lawrence Systems. And how's everyone going today?
I'm good.
How's everyone doing today?
I don't normally do the intro. We're recording a day late because I went to the dentist yesterday and had to get a crown replaced, and now it hurts. And so life moves on. So this is a little bit different, I think, today. I kind of pitched this to you this morning, and I'm going to tee it off with a little bit of a story here, and then we'll noodle on it, and we'll talk about the implications.
I like stories.
And what to do or not. Yeah, so I had a customer company. We've been doing some work with them, some Linux support. Linux support was tough for us, right? Because it wasn't a lot of hours. It was a retainer. Access to the systems was difficult because it's a manufacturing environment with a ton of security requirements. So we kind of made the decision towards the end of last year. We were just it wasn't worth it, right? So we had emailed the company and basically said, hey, this isn't worth it for us, and so we're gonna move on. They emailed us. They wanted a meeting. We went out there. We met with them. They kind of teased all this other work they could do, right, to try to all this other work. They're like, okay, what are your other capabilities, right? It's like, we got a ton of other work, right? So let's sweeten the pot and make this a little more worth it for you. So we started going back and forth, and we went out. We did a assessment for them, which is what we do, right? They needed it. There was no hesitation on the assessment. They recognized they have some problems and they needed solutions. So we did an assessment for them. Out of that assessment, as is normally the case, a variety of recommendations are levied, right? It's like they're backup things, some like other environments, some complexity, some security, right? We put together, so they're like, okay, we'll pitch it as a managed service. So we put together managed services quotes for this stuff, and we're like, oh man, this is going to be amazing now. And then they come back, they don't want to do it. So then they want to buy an hour block, but they don't want the hours to expire. And they want to go so far as to having us pay them back if they don't use them all by the time the agreement would expire. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. Like, you want the discount, but you don't want for the buying a ton of hours, but you don't want any of the risk that comes along with that. So, I basically said, nah, I'm not going to do it. So the guy came to me and he got a meeting, and he's like, look, here's what I really want. I want to send you 1,000-hour PO. And I want you to just consume it for projects that we're going to run over the next 9 months. And the idea is that these projects will put us in a position to potentially do managed services. Because he's like, you can't do that now. There's our environment's too chaotic. Right. It won't work. So the reason we said no isn't because we don't want to do it. It's one, I don't have the budget and I need to budget for it. So it's not going to happen next year. And two, we need to get our environment into a supportable state. So grudgingly, we worked through it, and I signed a deal. Had a meeting with them yesterday. It went really well. The first of those projects, which is some backup stuff, is starting to kick off, and I think it's going to be a really good client in a really good relationship. I is a MSP model. My initial gut on all of this was like, I don't do T&M. Like, generally, we'll do fixed scope projects, right? Like, we do fixed scope projects. We do managed work. I don't do T&M. So my initial reaction to that was to say no. And I wanted your take on that. And I thought that this could be an entire discussion that we end up kicking off today, because I think it's actually, I'm going to move you down here. So when I'm looking at you, I'm not looking way off into the distance. I'm looking more at you.
I put you right in front of me, man. You're right in the front.
Now you are too.
You're looking at me.
Yeah. So I wanted your take on it, and I thought this could be an interesting discussion around a couple of things. Like, one to say yes, and two, why I stick to my guns in many cases with that. So what are your thoughts here?
Well, for us, I mean, our MSP is our smallest part of our business, right? Our biggest part of our business is that T&M work, right? We do a lot of structured cabling. We do a lot of clients coming through the channel wanting us to lab out their network, build it, and then ship it to them, and charge them for the procurement and the time that it takes to set that up. Have we had jobs where we wish we hadn't taken? Yeah, we have.
Everyone has those. Yeah.
I'm working on one now with a large company where we're actually doing installs, wire, network, fire, the whole thing, to cameras, to access controls. We've done we're actually on the second location right now, and I will tell you, it's a stressful thing to have, but man, does it help to keep the cogs rolling within the business, right? It's paying for us to be able to do that. And guess what? There's 10 more coming up. And at one point I was like, we did one, and we came in with another IT company that was kind of doing the network integration, and it was one that we had actually done consulting with, so they were doing the integration like we would do it, right? And so we came in, and I said, I'm not doing another one of these projects. It was just a pain. They were behind. They were months, and I'm just not going to do anymore. And then we get a call for the second one. It's like, okay. And then it's like, so we went, Detroit, Atlanta, and now we're in Houston. And it's like, wow. Had I said no, we're not going to do this anymore. For one, it's been a good experience for our team that's down there installing. For me, it's been a good experience on all the different aspects of soup to nuts IT. And for the company, it's been a great revenue generator.
Yeah.
So had I said no, that may not have happened. And I think sometimes we're geared to say no. I think in a lot of things, I think our first thoughts as humans is do I really want to do this, right?
I think as MSPs, though, you definitely go through a phase in your infancy where you won't say no to anything, right? Because all revenue is good revenue. And I would definitively say that all revenue is not good revenue. There is definitely bad revenue. So, I mean, we would sell those as fixed scope projects. And so, we would say yes to those, right? We do a good amount of fixed scope projects or, fixed-ish scope projects. I'm doing a couple with people that you guys are dealing with right now, or it's like they buy it's basically a block hours for a relatively fixed scope. And I tend to say yes to that kind of stuff, right? Like what I tend to say no to and what my concerns are is that people that try to drive me down this time and materials road, right? I can't do time and materials for support, right? And so my initial gut on this is like these guys are basically trying to bait this like giant bucket of money in front of me because they really want the continued support on the other thing. But the other side of it is that this is a client that they were on 24/7, 360, well, not 365, 358. They go down a week, a year, and then they're down. I guess they're down for like 4 hours once a month or 8 hours once a month, right? So like, I'm like, these guys are going to call me during your down week and they're going to want all my text time. So my initial reaction was, no, this is not going to be a good
run away.
And what it took was me having a conversation with him and just basically being transparent and laying all the cards on the table. Like these are the reasons I would normally say no to this. I can't provide fire department support or firefighter support in this mode, right? Because like one of the reasons I don't do time and materials is my guys are scheduled, right? Like one of your guys was out yesterday, right? Like just out and talking to us, and we've been kind of going back and forth with how the businesses work, and the way we work is entirely different, right? Like my guys don't schedule their own time; they're scheduled by the dispatcher, and it's really hard to plan capacity when you have a ton of time and materials agreements. So my initial thought there was no.
Yeah, but I think what happens sometimes is if I want to step you back in that one, okay? Because you're saying no because a firestorm may happen, but guess what? Firestorms happen anyways, right? So when you think about the scheduled time your techs have through dispatch and how their days go, sometimes those days don't go that well because something happens, right? Sure. You just had you've had but in that case where you thought about saying no, you didn't, but you thought about saying no, I think you need to look at outcome and revenue outcome and time outcome and go, wait a minute, when I have a firestorm, I don't necessarily get paid this much. Maybe it's this
Yeah.
much, right? But if I do something where it's going to create a scheduled, so to speak,
Yeah.
firestorm, I make this much. So
Yeah.
I think you need to think about it that way as well. And
Yep.
that's what I
Yeah.
had to
That's what
think
we
about with
did.
these. Yeah, and look at it, and it's working out well for you. You told me some other projects with this person you're doing right now that are going to be some pretty good revenue generation
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah, I mean, we met with him yesterday, probably 250-hour project out of this block of 1,000 hours he sent me. We kicked off, and I mean, it's going to be good. Like, the work is not support; it is actually making the environment better. It is actually driving us down the road of right, like we're having discussions of we want you to set this up so you guys can manage it, right? Like, and so, in the end, when we do a managed services agreement, there's a giant remediation project that goes along with it anyways, in many cases. And so this guy, interestingly enough, basically said, you can't do you can't scope the remediation project. So we're just going to do the remediation project T&M, and then we'll approach manage when it ends. And you know what? We should follow up and, 6 should add it to the calendar to revisit this topic in November to know if we actually went down the road of managing that stuff.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I'll make sure we get that in the thing at the end of the show. Let me ask you this: are you going to be doing some? You do quarterly reviews with your clients. Are you going to do that with this client?
Nope.
Why not?
We only do. I mean, I'll meet with them whenever they want. We just make the quarterly reviews would not be included because there's no agreement and there's no recurring, right? If they want that type of service, then I'll just bill for it and we'll do it, right? Like, but we only tend to do quarterly reviews with clients that we have recurring revenue agreements in because they're not sales tools, right? They're technical and they're not technical, but they're basically me providing CIO like services, and there's value in that. It's not. I can't justify it as like a sales tool because too much time and tech effort goes into it.
What if you did something
and
different?
They're not sales heavy.
What if you did something different in that then? Well, because if you looked at the quarterly review is not a QBR or TBR, not a fully in, but more of a price comparison. Okay, so we've done this much for you in the last 3 months, and what you're doing in this kind of a quarterly review is actually leading them to the end when your hours are up. And now it's time to go to managed services, right? So it's more of maybe even a 10-15 minute conversation with them to say, okay, we've done this and this with you, and we're getting you prepared to go manage services, right? Understand? I mean, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a review.
We would probably do that. So the differentiation is that like I have actually per our conversation 2 weeks ago, I am down an outside sales guy right now. An offer is out right now. We'll see if it goes. But we have outside guys and we have account managers. On my side, accounts don't get assigned to account managers until there's some sort of recurring revenue agreement in place, and they are owned by outside sales until that point. So I would fully expect a successful outside salesperson to be hunting through that list. I used the word hunting very specifically, hunting through that list of things we have open like this and putting together those numbers in an attempt to sell the person managed services, right? Like, so
it's about engagement.
And that is a sales conversation. It's not a QBR. And that type of meeting I'll have all day. Like I'll let the salesperson have it, but QBRs on my side are led by account managers, and these accounts don't get account managers really assigned to them. They get sales reps assigned to them.
And that's where I was leading. I guess you walked us right into where I wanted to go. Thank you, Jason, because it's about the engagement. It's about in 3 months from now, somebody should be on the phone with them other than you from the company discussing what's gone on and where you're leaded and setting the expectation that, hey, at the end of this, we are doing a managed service agreement, and this is what that's going to look like. Because you're planting that seed every time. Because if you're saying this is a 9-month project, well, you've got 3 opportunities to make an impact, right?
More than that. I mean, we'll end up meeting with this client probably weekly or every other week, just based on the size of these projects, right? So,
well, I'm talking on the sales side, back on the sales side, because
yeah,
they're going to be engaging with you on the project side, but as a sales guy, right?
Yep.
There is money to be made in all this, but let's talk about for a minute the no. When do
yeah.
you say no?
I mean, I was gonna say no here, right? Like
Mhm.
I've gotten to the point, and I think we touched on this. Was it last week? When you become knowing when to say no means so much more about the yeses you do say, right? So,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
defining what you are as a business is as much defining what you're not as it is defining
Mhm.
what you are, right? And so we've made an internal decision. I do not take T&M clients on, right? Like
Right.
I don't I just don't do it. Now we will do some, like, this is an example of that. We will do block hour ish, fixed scope ish,
Mhm.
or generally fixed scope project work on a T&M basis, right? And to me,
Right.
that's different. I do not do support T&M, and that is a hard line there where I do say no.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's just it doesn't work out because they only call you, right? Like, and this goes to the entire MSP sales model. Both me and the client are making the most money in a managed sales model when they
Yeah.
have no issues, right?
Yeah,
Like, whereas in
absolutely.
a T&M support model, they're only paying me when something's broken. So, like, really, how incentivized am I to go above and beyond to stop things that could break in the future, right? Like,
Mhm.
maybe I have some sort of proactive monitoring agreement where I monitor stuff and then I bill for labor outside of that
Mhm.
proactive monitoring stuff. I'm not incentivized other than it's the right thing, but I'm not business incentivized to do anything else beyond what the minimum I'm contractually obligated to do in that monitoring agreement, because there's no path for me to get paid for it. Like, I can
Well,
put recommendations in front of the client, right? But
mhm.
like, if I see something's wrong and I'm not just going to go fix it, I'm going to maybe send it to the client who may ignore it. And if they ignore it, I'm like, meh, whatever.
Yeah,
Like, it'll eventually
yeah.
break. And then I'm going to make a truckload of money because I can charge them emergency rates while their stuff's down. I don't know.
Well, let's look at it at the other end of that. So let's look at it at the business owner's side of it, right?
Yep.
And being I was a business owner outside of IT and didn't really understand that. Really, IT in my mind was about an expenditure I didn't want to spend on things, right? I felt I could do it myself, and I was sorely mistaken. Um, I actually, and I know there are business minded people out there that don't want to necessarily commit to a 12-month or however long agreement you have, but they want to test the waters. So, how about, in looking at it that way, it's showing your value. Yeah, your upfront cost is you're not going to lose money, but your margins aren't going to be as high as you want them to be. But it's about showing them the value proposition in doing that. So you say, okay, I normally don't do this, but for the next 6 months, let's do a block of hours, or for the next
Yeah.
3 months, let's do a block of hours, and let's see where that goes. Thoughts on that?
So it's actually quite interesting because I go back and forth. I hate signing contracts that are more than a year long, but
Mhm.
I will sometimes if I'm fairly confident that in the tool. What I'm starting to do is include ejection clauses in those contracts if the company I'm
Yep.
dealing with is sold. Great pro tip, by the way. Like, add the
Injection.
ability to terminate the contract if the company transacts and is sold. Right, like, it's by protection
Yeah.
against companies getting sold to Kaseya. Uh,
Yes.
but like, generally I don't like that, and it's like, why should I do the same thing to my clients? So what I've started doing for clients that ask is I'm using the telco model, right? So the telco model is uh, if a client wants it, I will produce month-to-month pricing,
Hmm.
1 year pricing, and 3 year pricing, and I'll have them sign a 3 year. And the termination, I'm like, terminate with 90 days notice, whatever the case is, 60 days notice. However, at term, you're going to owe the difference between the term you served and the term you signed, right? So
Okay.
so my costs on MSP are very front loaded. Onboarding is expensive. I usually
Yes,
lose
it is.
money on onboarding projects, like, because I don't want to I don't want to screw the client, right? Like I
Right.
don't want to give them this giant upfront number, so that the cost of that onboarding is spread out through the entire length of that contract,
Correct.
or at least some of it. So I will produce a month to month. A month to month does T&M basically for the or block hours for the onboarding, and then it has probably a 50% higher price than the 3-year, right? Like
Right.
the 1 year would have probably 3 or 4 times the onboarding costs of a 3-year, and then it would be probably 25% more than a 3-year, and then the 3 years what it is. And if you want to cancel 13 months in, then you pay 13 times the cost difference between a 1 year and a 3-year contract, and then the non-recurring difference. And that's how you can try me out.
That's actually not a bad way to look at it.
Yep. I mean, in the end, I don't want to be in a bad relationship any more than anyone else does, right? Like, but because I mean that's terrible. It's terrible for everybody involved. If I'm holding somebody contractually to me that they don't want to be there, man, what a shitty experience for everybody.
I agree. And I like how you take what I say and show how you're doing it in almost a better way sometimes. I mean, but that's a good thing. That's a compliment to you and where you've grown as a business.
Yeah, at some point I want to write that into the service agreement so I can just offer that to everybody, right? Like, because from a valuation perspective, everyone wants everyone on 3-year contracts because those have the highest value on them. And, generally the term clause is okay, right? Like most people are fine with that. I would do and will do month to month for people, but like, you're going to basically pay the cost to bring us on board is high generally.
Yeah.
So, that number, I have not had anyone bite on it yet because the number required, I mean, it's probably 60, 80 hours of labor for me to onboard a 20 user company.
Yeah, because of all the aspects you're doing, and not every MSP does what you do. I mean, you're very security minded. I mean, more so. I mean, I think you're hyper security minded, which is a good thing for your clientele and for you guys, right? And you are doing a lot of things that not everybody does, right? And not everybody is getting it as in depth. But the reason you do that is because you're trying to make it, and you said it earlier in this conversation, where there's going to be less issues moving forward, right? You get all the issues out of the way up front, and then this client just chugs along paying recurring revenue every month.
Yep. I had a client meeting yesterday with a client that they've been having some bumps, and they're like, this is the user experience here hasn't been great. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna BS you. It's probably not gonna be great for the next 40 to 60 days because I'm trying to undo 15 years of you basically not addressing any of these issues. And we are making a ton of changes to your environment. And it's going to happen. It's going to be bumpy for a bit, but it will get better. And when it's done, you will overall have a better experience. And
correct.
And then I will actually be making money because the thing there is that because most of these agreements are all you can eat agreements, they're not super profitable when the client's having a ton of issues.
You keep them only for 12 months. It's like you've maybe broken even at the end of that 12 months, maybe, based on cost of goods sold. But it's interesting. There's a lot of dynamics, and I think we haven't gotten to when to say no. But I don't know. I think that's different for everybody, right? When you talk about no, I love it when part of what we do here is I do 15-minute discovery calls, right? So people want to engage with us. I send them a link. They set up a 15-minute discovery call with me, and we have a conversation. The ones that send me 4 or 5 emails prior to that actual call, I tend to go, how busybody is this customer going to be? If they've sent 5 emails to me with questions or thoughts and things prior to even us having an initial conversation, what's that relationship going to look like moving forward over the next few years, right? I think there are red flags for saying no to clients, but it's going to be different for everybody. You're new in the industry, you're going to say yes to everything because you need the revenue. But
you shouldn't do that, but you will.
You will. And at some point, you're going to realize that, okay, I need to pick and choose my clientele, because if I go with a clientele like this, I'm never going to make money. I'm going to be doing a lot of work. I'm going to be bringing in a lot of income, but my outlay is going to be very high. Where if I start going to clients like this, and I'm moving at a speed of, it's a slower acquisition, but a longer term
Yep.
relationship.
Yep. In the higher
So,
lifetime customer value, right?
yeah.
Like there's all these, we could do a whole episode on some of these terms like lifetime value, effective cost per acquisition, things like that are more businessy terms that I think a lot of MSPs that are born from tech people don't necessarily understand. And then another one that I had thought of along the way is defining ideal customer or target customer profile. We could have we should add both those to the list, because I think it's very important to define what your target customer profile is. And you can have more than one. We have two defined in our thing. One is more fully managed and the other is more co-managed, right? Like, and it's okay for them to be different. Like generally we won't take a fully managed client out with more than 150 employees, but I'll take co-managed there all day.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's a difference in it, right? It's a different field, really. Being the back end support as opposed to being front end support. There's a difference in that, right? And I think you and Tom, and in discussions from when we first all met, were, how do you do co-manage, or how does co-manage? There were a lot of questions because we were doing it. I'm not saying we were doing it well, but we were doing it, right?
Yep.
And we've grown a little bit in that. I don't think we're price wise. I don't think we're at where you're at, but I think we're getting closer to the thought process.
Yeah, it's a journey.
I think this next 2 months is going to be telltale. You're smiling.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
No,
this next month is going to be interesting, isn't
it? I'm smiling because I'm remembering our own journey. Because when we started down this road, I had a sales guy come to me and wanted to do this managed services model with all you can eat, and I said no. I wasn't going to do it. There was too much risk to me involved in doing it, and we were going to lose our money like hand and fist. And it took us a long time to basically settle on a pricing model and transition to doing an all inclusive model, because I was so worried about the finances on it. And it's a journey.
Look at you now. Look at
you
now.
You evolve as a business.
Well, I mean, and I think people need to understand all inclusive is an interesting topic. It doesn't mean like if that client needs some project work, you're charging project
for
rate,
sure,
maybe
for
the reduced rate. But
we are talking about a model where like PC replacements are just included. I know how long they take. I know how often we're refreshing. I can bake that into the cost, right? Like, and that's that makes it a little less bumpy. So I think that pretty soon you'll start seeing us offer a pricing package. I'm trying to get back to the mindset of 3, where there's 3 packages, and I'm like, I'm not giving on any of the security stuff.
The power of 3.
What can I offer is packages to kind of differentiate a couple of things. And I think that's one of them you'll see there, is whether or not like add, moves, changes, deletes are included.
So what do you do? I mean, that's an interesting one, because when you're replacing, what are you doing with old? You're recycling, you're reselling?
Yeah, we tend to recycle. We wipe the drives on them. Actually, we tend to not wipe the drives on them. What we tend to do is we pull the drives, and then I have a recycler that comes like once a quarter, and he just shreds destroys all the drives in front of us.
Yep.
We sometimes I need
we have a drive crusher here, and it tends to be our aggression day to get out all our aggressions on a Friday to crush drives. We have a little bit of fun with that.
30 minutes. I never thought this would go 30 minutes.
Well, I'm going to say something. I'll say my final thoughts, and then you end it, since you started it.
Sure.
There's money to be made out in the IT business. It's what, saying yes or saying no is really irrelevant, and it's going to be all up to you as a business owner. But, for us, we're available. You comment down below, we'll respond. I think, one of the things we've done on our side is we do business consulting on our side. If you're looking at it, I can do that. I'm sure you're more than happy to talk with people on that as well. It's about making our sphere, our MSP space better for everybody, because the more good ones there are out there, the better we all become, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with that. I mean, my final thoughts are there are business models that work for almost everybody. There are ones that I think need to mature a little bit because they're going to end up making a bad day for all the rest of us. And we'll continue to work to try to raise that tide there. But you know, there are, depending on where you are in your business and what your goals are, right? Like there is somebody to service companies at every level, right? And that is one of the biggest things that it's okay for me to say no because there is somebody out there that will say yes. So it's not like you're leaving the company with no one to help them, right? It's just that it's not a good fit for me, and it's okay to say yes too. Sometimes letting yourself think outside of the box can work out well. You know, you just need to. You need somebody. I think I used you as a sounding board on this one because I was like, man, I don't know what to do here. And you're like, you should do it. And and I did it, and it turns out okay.
No risk on my part.
Yeah.
Just do it. What the hell? And it's turning out good. I love it. I love it.
Cool.
I think we're done. Hey, like and subscribe, right?
Yeah, do those things. And then I have a request. If you're listening to this and you made it all the way to the end, would you guys like us to do this live one day? Right, we could do a live stream on a Tuesday because we're releasing these on Tuesday morning. So we usually have one banked up, but we're recording on the day we're releasing now. So in theory, we could do one live. So is there any interest in watching us do this live? And then we can react to those things that you guys are talking about as we do it. So comment that down below too.
Absolutely. All right. I think we're done.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Have a good week, everyone.
You guys.
See ya.
Have a good week.